Okay, well, I hope this one works because I literally recorded an entire video and it didn't record for whatever reason. Isn't that funny? Anyway, welcome back, listeners. My name is David Auger at 01. Anyway, my name is David Auger at MetalDave01 on Twitter.com, and you're listening to 1/4 of the Happy Hour at Happy Hour on Twitter.com. And yeah, it's just me, and this is a video. So the reason that's the case is because myself, Veronica, Ashley, and Beth went into this podcast idea knowing that there were going to be some weeks where we can't, where we simply couldn't get all of our schedules to match up. We're all living far-flung across the entire North American continent, and it just makes, and sometimes things are just difficult. Primarily, it's my fault, mostly because our primary day for recording is Thursday evenings, and what goes on now is that every once in a while I have a hockey game to attend. And that is the case this week, which is why I'm doing a little video supplement tonight. So this is what I'm going to talk about. And if it's not interesting, you can just turn it off because it's not going to be entertaining in the least. What's going to happen is I'm going to talk about the games that happened between the last podcast that we did and tonight. And I'm also going to talk about some of the news that occurred. So let's start with the games, shall we? Saturday, November 3rd, Le Canadien de Montréal are against the Tampa Bay Lightning at home, and Tampa Bay stomps them 4-1. Honestly, I don't recall the game all that well because when it comes to me and remembering things, it's actually rather embarrassing because I can't remember shit for shit, essentially. But what I do know is that looking at the NHL website is that the Canadiens were 0-4 on the power play, and when you're losing a game like that to Lightning, that's really bad, as I have said many times in the past. However, regardless of that fact, Max Domi continues to impress. He scored within the first minute of that game. Just unfortunately, the Lightning were able to get 4 goals back. I remember that first period being spectacular for the Habs, and for whatever reason, like the first 8 minutes rather, and then after that, the Lightning got their mojo back, and it just they just ran with it. But you know, when you're going up against a team like the Lightning, you have to expect that the Habs aren't going to be perfect against somebody like that, especially with the defense that we have not clicking in all the right places, and you know, what have you. So freaking out over something like that, not necessarily very, healthy for people. Next, November 5th, Monday, the Canadiens are in Long Island, or Brooklyn, which is the same, and I think we had a bit of a discussion on the podcast about that at some point. Regardless, this was a fun game. I was watching this all the way through, and it just happened only 2 days ago. Of course, the Islanders open up the scoring in the first period, only to be followed up by Jonathan Drouin with quite a snipe. The type of stuff that you want to see Drouin doing consistently. And of course, we're going to have all sorts of stuff to say about poor Joe at some point, but at least for this game with the Islanders, he did very well. Granted, within the first period, though, the Islanders end up leading 3-1, which made me tweet out something like, well, that's it, done, cash it in, because, I mean, they were flat-footed. It was terrible. But then, thankfully, the Habs proved me wrong. And how did they do that? Well, let me tell you something. At some point in the second period, the Habs got themselves a power play, and it looked fucking awful up until Max Domi pretty much handled the puck by himself while the entire team had possession in the offensive zone and just sniped it quick on freaking Thomas Greiss. And just, I get it. Power play goal, my heart stopped, essentially, and I had to resuscitate myself. But as is, Max Domi, again, showing that he loves playing for Montreal, and he is, without a doubt, an incredible addition to the team. Who's this Galchenyuk guy? That was followed up by Noah Jolson with a tip from Kotkaniemi in the third period to tie it up, and that was a good thing too, because then we got to an overtime that was really crazy. I think the Islanders started with a power play that was able to be killed, thank God. And oh yeah, another name to mention in that would be freaking Antti Niemi, who stood on his head during the shootout, blocked every shot, or at least the Islanders missed every shot on him. He didn't even have to, well, he had to do a lot of work, but regardless, he kept the Habs in it, and then Joel Armia got the game, got the winner in the shootout. And everyone knows what I think about Joel Armia, and that came to a head last night, of course. Armia, he's a guy that when he plays with Kotkaniemi, I don't think he is the best match for that. However, with adding Lehkonen to that line, I think it stabilized it a bit. Yeah, I think it stabilized it a bit. So I didn't really want to gripe on Armia all that much, aside from him being on the first squad of that power play. There's plenty wrong with that power play, and Armia is not the answer. Anyway, I digress. Against the Islanders, the Habs were 1-3 in the power play. Thank God. Next. November 6th, the first back-to-back of the season, and the Habs go from Brooklyn to New York City. And it's only a few kilometers, and even less miles away. And things were looking great. The Habs are 3-1 in the second period when I left, with 2 goals from Thomas Tatar, who was an absolute revelation. Thank God for him. And who else but Max Domi with his 9th of the season, which officially puts him over who? John Tavares. Who cares about that pajama-wearing freak? Anyway, the reason I left was because I went to a hockey game. It was my Rensselaer Rejects versus the Albany Bombers. I was terrible on the faceoff dot, but we had a weird rotation going where I was one of 2 centers to be able to play the match that night, and we were rotating with 6 wingers. So of course I'm taking like 3 or 4 minute shifts and basically killing myself. Had a few shots on goal, but overall not a banner night for myself, even though the Rejects end up winning 8-6, I think, something like that. It was a barn burner. Regardless, the Rangers end up beating the Habs 5-3. And I'm looking at power plays here. I don't know what to say about it. It's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. I see that the Habs got themselves 7 power plays and they scored on 1 of them, which is good. I'd rather them score on a power play every game than have to score on every power play. For some reason, I have it beat into my skull that the man advantage has to be taken advantage of to the fullest in order to, cause some pain, get a goal, and whatnot. But that does not seem to be the case with the Habs. Regardless, it has to be. Something's not clicking. It has to change. What is Kirk Muller doing there? But to fix the power play, it's still so bad. So bad, in fact, that the official stat for it is 15.3%. I asked at the beginning of the season for 18%. The real math is that in 15 games? Yeah, 15 games, 9 goals on 59 attempts. Whatever. And the power kill, or the penalty kill, isn't all that much better, but what can you do? Regardless, that's the game recap. There we go. Now I'm going to move right on to the news that happened. First thing, no, I don't want to do that. Jeremiah Edison, contract terminated. Womp womp. I didn't really care about him anyway. Moving on, some good news. Actually some bad news. So I was griping about Armia before. He gets injured. So now it forces the coaching staff to do something else, which is what I wanted them to do in the first place. Granted, the line with him and Kotkaniemi and Lehkonen was, fine, but the power play. Now it forces them to change what they do on the power play. And who's the player that gets called up? Nikita Sherbak? No. Kenny Augustino, who, as of tonight, has 10 points in 12 games for the Laval Rocket. And he was a vaunted AHLer before we picked him up from, the Providence Bruins. And he was quite a ringer in the AHL. So we bring him up, 26 years old, a little older for a forward, and I guess they'll slot him in probably in the 4th line and push Shaw up to the Kotkaniemi line, or maybe just give Augustino time with Kotkaniemi. I don't know. That's going to be crazy. I can't wait to see it. At the game, let's see, when's the next game? Oh yeah, tomorrow night against the Sabres, who are red hot apparently, and they're dangerous. So it's weird to say that in a sentence. Anyway, so that's news. Oh, one more bit of news actually, and this is really cool. 6 Canadiens prospects to play in the CIBC Canada-Russia series, and who are the names on this prospect list? And it's a good one. It's Nick Suzuki, Cam Hillis, Josh Brook, Scott Walford, who I don't remember, Joel Teasdale, and Joel Teasdale, and then an Alexander Romanov. Of course, Nick Suzuki is tearing it up into OHL. Can't wait to see him. Cam Hillis, I don't recall off the top of my head. Josh Brook, gonna be a great defender at some point. Scott Wolford, like I said, don't remember. Joel Teasdale, I saw personally play at the rookie tournament. I thought it was decent. And then Alexander Romanov, according to Twitter and some very nice accounts overseas, showing him a teenager playing in a men's league, kind of like how Kotkaniemi is doing with the NHL. And that is all the news, and that was also my game recaps. Super brief. And as I said, I really apologize for us not being able to put a video together for the happy hour. But, hopefully you enjoy this video. And if not, well, we'll just have to do better. As is, there's nothing really to worry about. Yeah, sure, the Habs lost to the Rangers, and that was pretty brutal, at least from what I can see. I haven't seen the rest of the game. I'm planning on watching it later tonight, just get a grasp of like the enormity of their failures in that aspect. But it's like I was reading through Twitter, of course, and I see that people want to drop Price, want to trade Price. It's like, no, you just why? You can't do that. Absolutely ridiculous. No movement clause, and just nobody's going to pick up a $10 million contract. At least I don't think so. Why would they want to? Who would have the cap space to do that? Regardless. And I don't want anybody saying, whoa, why do the Habs pay him $10 million? Because he's fucking Carey Price. That's why. And we want him. Regardless, this team is definitely not the team from last year. They're going to have bad games, but let's look at something good. They have not lost consecutive games all season, and that might be it. No, but seriously, I'm really excited for these Habs, and come what may against the Sabres, let's hope that having them rest a day and having Kenny Agostino in the lineup maybe sparks a few things. And we have to remember, too, that, Paul Byron's out. Thomas Plekanec is out. And above all, of course, Shea Weber is out. And once we get Shea Weber back in the D-core, I really, really think that it will help mitigate some of the minutes that, like, Ben and Petrie have to deal with. And it can only help the team overall. So with that being said, again, thanks for listening. And I'm David Auger. MetalDave01 at Twitter.com. This was the Happy Hour. Bye.